Well, let's continue the conversation now. Business Unity South Africa CEO Khulekani Mathe joining us now for more, particularly on matters around trade relations between South Africa and the United States. Mr. Mathe, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Can we start with your assessment as Business Unity South Africa of this meeting, the President calling it a success? I know that your deputy, Adrian Gore, was part of the President's delegation. What has he told you?
Good evening, Polly, and to the viewers, and thank you for the opportunity. Firstly, let me just say that Adrian Gore is the Deputy President and I am CEO, so in a sense, he is the boss.
Yes.
Polly, I actually share the view that was expressed by the President that this meeting was a success. Understanding that trade negotiations take a very long time, we didn't have any expectation that at the end of the meeting there would be a breakthrough announced on a trade deal of one form or another. I think what makes it a success for us is the fact that actually the two teams, Pretoria and Washington, actually sat down to discuss matters political, to discuss matters of trade. Of course, this is something that, as far as we know, had not happened for a few months since the President of the United States took office. And so now they are talking. Of course, there's going to be difficulties here and there. It is in the nature of any negotiation, but I think the fact that they are talking is very, very positive.
Yeah. The crime conversation in South Africa, do you believe perhaps that it may have been overplayed to the detriment of the country? And I'm asking you this on the back of organizations, particularly in the tourism space. There is one organization that's issued a statement today saying that this crime situation, or the matter of crime being put or elevated so high, it basically was done in a way that is devoid of facts, and if anything, they view it as having been hyped up unnecessarily. What's your view?
Well, look, I think that what we cannot deny as South Africans is the fact that we do have a crime problem. And I think that the point that was being made by several people in the South African team in Washington was the fact that this crime that we have, which is of course a problem, affects everybody. It doesn't only affect one grouping. It is not executed by those who perpetrate it on a racial basis. I think that was the main point that was made. Of course, in another environment where it is about wooing people to come to South Africa to visit and so on, it would probably have made sense to not talk about the crime only, but talk about what is being done to address the crime so that you can give confidence to those planning to visit South Africa. But I think we must appreciate the fact that the South African team didn't have much airtime to explain things. And so this is why I suppose there was a feeling that the crime thing was exaggerated or perhaps hyped up too much. But I think that the point that was being made is bigger than just the crime. It was saying there's no genocide in South Africa. What we have is a problem that affects all citizens of the country.
That element you've just touched on, the so-called white genocide, and that there is no white genocide in South Africa. Do you believe that it was put forward forcefully? Because there is the view that the South African team was somewhat disjointed in their messaging when confronted with this, and that they could have come out much stronger.
So let's not forget one thing here, and that is that here we are talking to the United States, a country that many will argue that has the best intelligence capability, right? So they actually know the truth. They know the facts. The fact that President Trump elected to rely on newspaper clippings to make a point rather than relying on intelligence sources from his own administration just tells you that this is not about facts. This is about, making a different point. And again, I think he was talking to people, to his constituency, to justify some of the decisions he's made. And so I do think that it's less about South Africans not having emphasized that point. I think you could have said it 100 times. Those who believe it for whatever reason. So I don't think that our team fell short in representing our country. I think they made the points that needed to be made. In particular, they emphasized the fact that the visit to Washington was about resetting the relationship such that we can have continued and increased trade and investment between our two countries, because that is important for growth and employment creation. That is central. We're a country that has an unemployment problem, and so we cannot be distracted by other things from that central challenge.
South Africa is endowed with mineral resources. The president even going as far as saying we have rare earth minerals, and this is part of, if you want to call it that, the bargaining chip that he was putting forward to the American administration. Let's start with what the mining sector has to offer, because South Africans may be confused at this stage, because at times it is touted as a sunset industry, given mining that has gone on for years and that perhaps it is slowing down. What about the mining sector that do you think will be attractive for the United States to buy into?
Just before I address that point, Polly, again, I think the president used that as an example in making a bigger point. And the bigger point he was making is that actually the relationship between South Africa and the United States is not a one-way street. That as much as we need investment, U.S. investment in South Africa, some 600 odd companies that are invested here. He also made the point that there were some 20 odd South African companies invested in the U.S. And then he went on to show that for some of their own needs require, or development and technological needs require, some of the critical minerals that we have in this country. He was showing that, yes, we might be a small economy of only 60 million people, but actually they need us, we need them, and therefore we must work on a mutually beneficial relationship. Now, coming to the critical minerals, they are used in various different applications, including technological processes, including computers, semiconductors, etc., that the United States needs for its own development, for its own tech industry, etc. And so South Africa has those, and dare I say, has them in abundance. And that if we are able to develop this mutually beneficial relationship, they can benefit from that, and we can also benefit from the other strengths that the United States of America has.
Yeah. These minerals, Mr. Mathe, are we, because I think I heard at some point the Minister of Trade talking about we've got about 12 minerals as a country to offer, and 9 of those are already, I think, being traded between South Africa and the United States. The question is, are we sending these minerals raw to America, or have they been beneficiated? And that is the core, that is the strategy that the president has been selling even in international fora. How are we sending these minerals across?
So I mean, there are different stages of processing of minerals before they actually make their way into a final consumer product of one form or the other. So one thing that we should appreciate firstly is that our trade with the United States is special in a different way as well. See, unlike trade with countries like China, where the majority of what we send to China are raw minerals, in the case of the US, and I'm not talking here only about minerals, I'm talking about the fact that we also send finished product, we trade with them or export to them cars and other finished products. So actually, we have a relationship that is a lot more beneficial from that point of view. And the president has indeed said that there is evidence that minerals processing is best done close to source. And the argument he is making is that for a relationship around these minerals with the US, there would need to be processing capability either developed or enhanced close to source, and the source being South Africa and the African continent. And that obviously bodes well for creating jobs in the South African economy. So that is happening to a lesser extent. A deal around these minerals could see a much greater development, a much greater beneficiation taking place over a period of time. These things do not happen overnight, but over a period of time, you could actually see a lot of processing taking place, benefiting our country.
As far as gas is concerned, how much gas deposits do we have?
So the issue I think that was raised relates to our own gas needs because, as you might have heard, we are actually going to face some difficulties around gas in a year or so's time. And so South Africa has been looking at ways in which we can address that problem for ourselves to start with, and looking around the world and looking at developing other sources for that, within the continent. So the gas story is, again, a bit complex, but again, we need gas, they need gas. And again, we would both benefit from a relationship in that sector.
As we end the conversation, do you believe that that meeting, seeing that both organized business and government, as represented by the president, also see it as a success, do you believe that, first of all, the United States president will be in South Africa for the G20 in November, but also importantly that this administration appreciates what has been, I don't want to call it a slogan because there's a reason why South Africa is seen as a gateway to the continent. Do you believe that this current US administration understands and appreciates that South Africa is indeed a gateway because many of their companies are headquartered here and they expand to the rest of the continent? Do you believe that that is going to continue?
So firstly, starting with whether President Trump will come to the G20 Leaders Summit towards the end of the year, no definitive decision was communicated. But I got a sense from the conversation between them. I mean, he made a statement like, well, without the United States, there's no G20, and kind of agreed with our president when he made the point that, by the way, they originated this. I mean, might have been a bit of an exaggeration, but I think the point being made is that you need to continue to play a leadership role here. So I got a sense that the president of the United States likely to come to the G20 summit, but this is mere speculation. Things can change. November is a long way away. Coming to your next question, again, if we were an unimportant place that really has nothing to offer the world at all, I don't think the president of the US would spend so much time, so much energy that he has in the last couple of months mentioning us repeatedly, including in executive orders. So I think there is recognition that we are a strategic partner. And so I do think that the nature of the conversation, at least the part that was public, led me to believe that there is going to be continued engagement here. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be robust, but it's not going to be one that says, well, you cannot try to destroy us, because there's recognition that we have something to offer the US, we have got something to offer the world. And so I'm a lot more positive about this than many people who think that it was all just bad. We were, the president didn't get a word in. I think the president performed very, very well, and I think the world now knows us more because many people were watching because of what has happened to other people who have visited the White House. So many more people know about us, know about our president, know that our president doesn't easily get provoked. He is able to keep his cool, but also know about what we have to offer the world, both from a diplomatic point of view, peacemaking, as well as minerals, as the president was saying, and various other strengths.
Khulekani Mathe, thank you very much for your time. Business Unity South Africa's CEO talking to us about their assessment of the Trump-Ramaphosa